Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. Chapter 1. The Thinker and the Prover. All that we are is the result of all that we have thought. It is founded on thought. It is based on thought. Buddha, the Dhammapada. William James, father of American psychology, tells of meeting an old lady who told him the earth rested on the back of a huge turtle. "But, my dear lady," Professor James asked as politely as possible, "what holds up the turtle?" "Ah," she said, "that's easy. He is standing on the back of another turtle." "Oh, I see," said Professor James, still being polite. "But would you be so good as to tell me what holds up the second turtle?" "It's no use, Professor," said the old lady, realizing he was trying to lead her into a logical trap. "It's turtles, turtles, turtles all the way." Don't be too quick to laugh at this little old lady. All human minds works on fundamentally similar principles. Her universe was a little bit weirder than MoSsY, but it was built up on the same mental principles as every other universe people have believed in. As Dr. Leonard Orr has noted, the human mind behaves as if it were divided into two parts, the thinker and the prover. The thinker can think about virtually anything. History shows that it can think the earth is suspended on the backs of infinite turtles, or that the earth is hollow, or that the earth is floating in space. Comparative religion and philosophy show that the thinker can regard itself as mortal, as immortal, as both mortal and immortal, the reincarnation model, or even as non-existent, Buddhism. It can think itself into living in a Christian universe, a Marxist universe, a scientific relativistic universe, or a Nazi universe, among many possibilities. As psychiatrists and psychologists have often observed, much to the chagrin of their medical colleagues, the thinker can think itself sick and can even think itself well again. The prover is a much simpler mechanism. It operates on one law only. Whatever the thinker thinks, the prover proves. To cite a notorious example which unleashed incredible horrors earlier in this century, if the thinker thinks that all Jews are rich, the prover will prove it. It will find evidence that the poorest Jew in the most rundown ghetto has hidden money somewhere. Similarly, feminists are able to believe that all men, including the starving wretches who live and sleep on the streets, are exploiting all women, including the Queen of England. If the thinker thinks that the sun moves around the earth, the prover will obligingly organize all perceptions to fit that thought. If the thinker changes its mind and decides the earth moves around the sun, the prover will reorganize the evidence. If the thinker thinks holy water from Lourdes will cure its lumbago, the prover will skillfully orchestrate all signals from the glands, muscles, organs, etc. until they have organized themselves into good health again. Of course, it is fairly easy to see that other people's minds operate this way. It is comparatively much harder to become aware that one's own mind is working that way also. It is believed, for instance, that some men are more objective than others. One seldom hears this about women. Businessmen are allegedly hard-nosed, pragmatic, objective in this sense. A brief examination of the dingbat politics most businessmen endorse will quickly correct that impression. Scientists, however, are still believed to be objective. No study of the lives of the great scientists will confirm this. They were as passionate and hence as prejudiced as any assembly of great painters or great musicians. It was not just the church, but also the established astronomers of the time who condemned Galileo. The majority of physicists rejected Einstein's special relativity theory in 1905. Einstein himself would not accept anything in quantum theory after 1920, no matter how many experiments supported it. Edison's commitment to direct current DC electrical generators led him to insist Alternating current AC generators were unsafe for years after their safety had been proven to everyone else. Science achieves or approximates objectivity not because the individual scientist is immune from the psychological laws that govern the rest of us, but because scientific method, a group creation, eventually overrides individual prejudices in the long run. To take a notorious example from the 1960s, there was a point when 3 research groups had proven that LSD causes chromosome damage, while 3 other groups had proven that LSD has no effect on the chromosomes. In each case, the prover had proved what the thinker thought. Right now, there are in physics 7 experiments that confirm a very controversial concept known as Bell's Theorem and 2 experiments that refute Bell's theorem. In the area of extrasensory perception, the results are uniform after more than a century. Everybody who sets out to prove that ESP exists succeeds, and everybody who sets out to prove that ESP does not exist also succeeds. Truth or relative truth emerges only after decades of experiments by thousands of groups all over the world. In the long run, we are hopefully approximating closer and closer to objective truth over the centuries. In the short run, Orr's law always holds. Whatever the thinker thinks, the prover will prove. And if the thinker thinks passionately enough, the prover will prove the thought so conclusively that you will never talk a person out of such a belief, even if it is something as remarkable as the notion that there is a gaseous vertebrate of astronomical heft, God, who will spend all eternity torturing people who do not believe in his religion. Chapter 2, Hardware and Software, the Brain and its Programs. We as a species exist in a world in which exist a myriad of data points. Upon these matrices of points, we superimpose the structure and the world makes sense to us. The pattern of the structure originates within our biological and sociological properties, from space-time transients and unusual events. We will throughout this book consider the human brain a kind of biocomputer, an electrocolloidal computer, as distinct from the electronic or solid-state computers which exist outside our heads. Please note carefully and long remember that we have not said that the human brain is a computer. The Aristotelian idea that to understand something you must know what it is has been abundant in one science after another, for the pragmatic reason that the simple word is introduces so many metaphysical assumptions that we can argue forever about them. In the most advanced sciences, such as mathematical physics, nobody talks about what anything is anymore. They talk about what model or map can best be used to understand whatever we are investigating. In general, this scientific habit of avoiding is can be profitably extended to all areas of thought. Thus, when you read anywhere that A is B, it will clarify matters if you translate this as A can be considered as or modeled by B. When we say A is B, we are saying that A is only what it appears within our field of study or our area of specialization. This is saying too much. When we say A can be considered as B, or modeled by B, we are saying exactly as much as we have a right to say and no more. We therefore say that the brain can be considered as a computer, but we do not say it is a computer. The brain appears to be made up of matter in electrocolloidal suspension, protoplasm. Colloids are pulled together toward a condition of gel by their surface tensions. This is because surface tensions pull all glue-like substances together. Colloids are also conversely pushed apart toward a condition of sol by their electrical charges. This is because their electrical charges are similar, and similar electrical charges always repel each other. In the equilibrium between gel and sol, the colloidal suspension maintains its continuity and life continues. Move the suspension too far toward gel or too too far towards soul and life ends. Any chemical that gets into the brain changes the gel-cell balance and consciousness is accordingly influenced. Thus, potatoes are, like LSD, psychedelic in a milder way. The changes in consciousness when one moves from a vegetarian diet to an omnivorous diet or vice versa are also psychedelic. Since what the thinker thinks, the prover proves, all of our ideas are psychedelic. Even without experimenting with diet or drugs, whatever you think you should see, you will see, unless it is physically impossible in this universe. Every computer consists of two aspects known as hardware and software. Software here includes information. The hardware in a solid-state computer is concrete and localized, consisting of central processing unit, display, keyboard, external disk drive, CD-ROM, floppies, etc. All the parts you can drag into Radio Shack for repair if the computer is malfunctioning. The software consists of programs that can exist in many forms, including the totally abstract. A program can be in the computer in the sense that it is recorded in the CPU or on a disk which is hitched up to the computer. A program can also exist on a piece of paper if I invented it myself, or in a manual if it is a standard program. In these cases, it is not in the computer but can be put in at any time. But a program can be even more tenuous than that. It can exist only in my head if I have never written it down or if I have used it once and erased it. The hardware is more real than the software in that you can always locate it in space-time. If it's not in the bedroom, somebody must have moved it to the study, etc. On the other hand, the software is more real in the sense that you can smash the hardware back to dust, kill the computer, and the software still exists and can materialize or manifest again in a different computer. Any speculations about reincarnation at this point are the responsibility of the reader, not of the author. In speaking of the human brain as an electrocolloidal biocomputer, we all know where the hardware is. It is inside the human skull. The software, however, seems to be anywhere and everywhere. For instance, the software in my brain also exists outside my brain in such forms as, say, a book I read 20 years ago, which was an English translation of various signals transmitted by Plato 2,400 years ago. Other parts of my software are made up of the software of Confucius, James Joyce, my second grade teacher, the Three Stooges, Beethoven, my mother and father, Richard Nixon, my various dogs and cats, Dr. Carl Sagan, and anybody, and to some extent, anything that has ever impacted upon my brain. This may sound strange, but that's the way software or information functions. Of course, if consciousness consisted of nothing but this undifferentiated tapioca of timeless, spaceless software, we would have no individuality, no center, no self. We want to know then how out of this universal software ocean a specific person emerges. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. Because the human brain, like other animal brains, acts as an electrocolloidal computer, not a solid-state computer, it follows the same laws as other animal brains. That is, the programs get into the brain as electrochemical bonds in discrete quantum stages. Each set of programs consists of 4 basic parts. 1. Genetic imperatives, totally hardwired programs or instincts. 2. Imprints. These are more or less hardwired programs which the brain is genetically designed to accept only at certain points in its development. These points are known in etiology as times of imprint vulnerability. 3. Conditioning. These are programs built onto the imprints. They are looser and fairly easy to change with counter-conditioning. 4. Learning. This is even looser and softer than conditioning. In general, the primordial imprint can always overrule any subsequent conditioning or learning. An imprint is a species of software that has become built-in hardware, being impressed on the tender neurons when they are peculiarly open and vulnerable. Imprints, software frozen into hardware, are the non-negotiable aspects of our individuality. Out of the infinity of possible programs existing as potential software, the imprint establishes the limits, parameters within which all subsequent conditioning and learning occurs. Before the first imprint, the consciousness of the infant is formless and void, like the universe at the beginning of Genesis, or the descriptions of unconditioned, enlightened, exploded consciousness in the mystic traditions. As soon as the first imprint is made, structure emerges out of the creative void. The growing mind else becomes trapped within the structure. It identifies with the structure. In a sense, it becomes a structure. This entire process is analyzed in G. Spencer Brown's Laws of Form, and Brown was writing about the foundations of mathematics and logic. But every sensitive reader knows that Brown is also talking about the process we have all passed through in creating, out of an infinite ocean of signals, those particular constructs we call myself and my world. Not surprisingly, many acid heads have said that Brown's math is the best description ever written of an LSD trip. Each successive imprint complicates the software which programs our experience and which we experience as reality. Conditioning and learning build further networks onto this bedrock of imprinted software. The total structure of this brain circuitry makes up our map of the world. It is what our think of things and our prover mechanically fits all incoming signals to the limitations of this map. Following Dr. Timothy Leary with a few modifications, we shall divide this brain hardware into 8 circuits for convenience. For convenience means that this is the best map I know at present. I assume it will be replaced by a better map within 10 or 15 years, and in any case, the map is not the territory. 4 of the circuits are antique and conservative. They exist in everybody except feral children. 1. The Aural biosurvival circuit. This is imprinted by the mother or the first mothering object and conditioned by subsequent nourishment or threat. It is primarily concerned with sucking, feeding, cuddling, and body security. It retreats mechanically from the noxious or predatory, or from anything associated by imprinting or conditioning with the noxious or predatory. 2. The anal emotional territorial circuit. This is imprinted in the toddling stage when the infant rises up, walks about, and begins to struggle for power within the family structure. This mostly mammalian circuit possesses territorial rules, emotional games or cons, packing order, and rituals of domination or submission. 3. The time-binding semantic circuit. This is imprinted and conditioned by human artifacts and symbol systems. It handles and packages the environment, classifying everything according to the local reality tunnel, invention, calculation, prediction, and transmitting signals across generations are its functions. 4. The moral social sexual circuit. This is imprinted by the first orgasm mating experiences at puberty and is conditioned by tribal taboos. It processes sexual pleasure, local definitions of right and wrong, reproduction, adult parental personality, sex role, and nurture of the young. The development of these circuits as the brain evolved through evolution, and as each domesticated primate, human brain, recapitulates evolution and growing from infancy to adulthood, makes possible gene pool survival, mammalian, sociobiology, packing order or politics, and transmission of culture. The second group of 4 brain circuits is much newer, and each circuit exists at present only in minorities. Where the antique circuits recapitulate evolution to the present, these futuristic circuits precapitulate our future evolution. 5. The holistic neurosomatic circuit. This is imprinted by ecstatic experience via biological or chemical yogas. It processes neurosomatic, mind-body feedback loops, somatic sensory bliss, feeling high, faith, healing, etc. Christian Science, NLP, and holistic medicine consist of tricks or gimmicks to get the circuit into action, at least temporarily. Tantra Yoga is concerned with shifting consciousness entirely into this circuit. 6. The collective neurogenetic circuit. This is imprinted by advanced yogas, biochemical electrical stresses. It processes DNA, RNA, brain feedback systems and is collective in that it contains and has access to the whole evolutionary script, past and future. Experience of this circuit is numinous, mystical, mind-shattering. Here dwell the archetypes of Jung's collective unconscious, gods, goddesses, demons, hairy dwarfs, and other personifications of the DNA programs, instincts that govern us. 7. The metaprogramming circuit. This is imprinted by very advanced yogas. It consists, in modern terms, of cybernetic consciousness, reprogramming and re-imprinting all of the circuits, even reprogramming itself, making possible conscious choice between alternative universes or reality tunnels. 8. The non-local quantum circuit. This is imprinted by shock, by near-death or clinical death experience, by OBs, out-of-body experiences, by trans-time perceptions, precognition, by trans-space visions, ESP. It tunes the brain into the non-local quantum communication system suggested by physicists such as Bohm, Walker, Sarfati, Bell, etc. These circuits will be explained in detail as we proceed. Chapter 3. The Aural Biosurvival Circuit. Genes, like Leibniz monads, have no windows. The higher properties of life are emergent. Edward Wilson, Sociobiology. Few of our ancestors were perfect ladies or gentlemen. The majority of them were not even mammals. Any multicellular organism must, if it is to survive, contain a hardwired biosurvival circuit which very simply programs an either or choice: go forward to the nourishing, the protective, or go back away from the threatening, the predatory. Any mammal hooks the biosurvival circuit to the first imprinted biosurvival object, the teat. Biosurvival and orality are deeply blended in all mammals, including domesticated primates, humans. This is why, despite the cancer terror, an estimated 30 million Americans still smoke cigarettes. Others chew gum, spearmint, juicy fruit, even sugar-free, something for every taste. Bite their fingernails, gnaw their knuckles, scrunch pencil stops, eat more than they need. Potato chips, anyone? A Mars bar, maybe? Pretzels, peanuts, cashews. Do you want the cheese and crackers with your beer, Mac? And do try the canapes, Mrs. Miller. Some chew their lips, gobble tranks and uppers, even munch their mustaches. What goes on in the bedroom is known to the Kinsey Institute and anyone who has seen a porn film. How important is this oral imprinting? We read of baby giraffe whose mother was accidentally killed by a jeep immediately after birth. The neonate, following hardwired genetic programs, imprinted the first subject that roughly fit the giraffe archetype, the jeep itself. He followed the machine around, vocalized to it, attempted to suckle from it, and when adult, tried to mate with it. Similarly, Conrad Lorenz tells of a gosling who accidentally imprinted a ping-pong ball and spent his adult life indifferent to female geese, attempting to sexually mount ping-pong balls. As Charles Darwin noted, in our maturer years, when an object of vision is presented to us which bears any similitude to the form of the female bosom, we feel a general glow of delight which seems to influence all of our senses. The ancients pictured the great mother goddess Diana of Ephesus with literally dozens of breasts, and St. Paul reports hearing her worshippers chanting rapturously, "Great is Diana." There is virtually no great artist who has not left us a portrait or many portraits of the nude female form, especially the breasts. And even in non-human scenes, curves are introduced wherever possible. Architects break the Euclidean straight line to introduce such curves at the slightest pretext, arches, Moorish domes, etc. The curves of the suspension bridge are necessitated by Newton's laws, gravity's rainbow. But still, these doubly catenary curves are aesthetically pleasing for the reasons Darwin suggests. As for music, Where did we first hear it? Who sang or hummed to us, and against what part of our body were we held? Mountain climbers are reduced, like Mallory, to saying because it's there when trying to explain their compulsion to ascend those conic peaks. Our eating utensils, oral gratification tools, tend to be rounded or curved. Square plates or saucers look campy or strange. UFOs come in a variety of shapes, but the most popular are the oval and conic. Freudians suggest that opiate addiction is an attempt to return to the womb. In keeping with our theory, it is more likely that opium and its derivatives return us to the safe space on the biosurvival circuit, the warm, snug place of biosecurity. Opiates may trigger neurotransmitters characteristic of breastfeeding. In summary, the biosurvival circuit is DNA programmed to seek a comfort safety zone around a mothering organism. If a mother isn't present, the closest substitute in the environment will be imprinted. For the orphan giraffe, a four-wheeled jeep was chosen to stand in for the four-legged mother. The gosling who could not find the round, white body of the mother goose fixated a round, white ping-pong ball. The wiring of this circuit in primitive form occurred in first organisms between 3 and 4 billion years ago. In the modern human, this structure remains in the brainstem and in the autonomic involuntary nervous system, where it is interconnected with the endocrine and other life support systems. This is why disturbances on the circuit act all over the body at once and generally take the form of physical symptoms rather than mental symptoms, and usually get referred to the MD instead of the psychiatrist. It must be stressed that we are still in a primitive stage of evolution and conditions on this planet are quite brutal. Radical pediatricians insist with good evidence that childbirth by conventional means in a conventional hospital is almost always traumatic for the newborn, creates a bad imprint in our language. Our child-rearing methods are far from ideal also, adding bad conditioning on top of bad imprinting. And the general violence of our societies to date, including wars, revolutions, civil wars, and the undeclared civil war of the predatory criminal class in every civilized nation, keeps the first circuit on most people in an emergency state far too much of the time. In 1968, a U.S. public health survey showed that 85% of the population had one or more symptoms that we would call bad first circuit imprinting or conditioning. These symptoms included dizzy spells, heart palpitations, wet palms, and frequent nightmares. This means that 85 out of the next 100 people you meet should be regarded as more or less the walking wounded. This is the first level of meaning in our brutal, cynical proposition that most people are almost as mechanical as sci-fi robots. A man or woman entering a new situation with the anxiety chemicals of a frightened infant coursing through the brainstem is not going to be able to observe, judge, or decide anything.